Welcome to the Vehicle Loan Project. What I have here is the template that probably matches what you have. It's blank, of course, and I want you to see what it would look like when it's completed for 60 months of a car loan. And so I'm going to click down here on Vehicle Done. You can kind of get a rough idea. So we have our givens, and this is some case study numbers that I'm going to share with you in a moment, all the way down to month 60 where it zeroes out. And the other thing we're going to do, just to kind of give you an idea, is we're going to go to cars.com and I'm going to choose this particular Honda Civic to purchase. And it's a used car that's being sold here at this Cadillac lot. And when I'm all done with the spreadsheet, I'm going to help you to see how it actually matches what you could do here in the payment calculator of cars.com. The purpose of the spreadsheet is to give you the big picture of what debt is all about when it comes to vehicles. You can learn the mechanics of everything, how the formulas work, and so we're going to build it from the bottom up, in other words. Alright, so this Honda Civic that I've picked out is a $16,500 used vehicle. The sales tax corresponds to whatever state you are in which you buy the vehicle, and I'm going to use the state of Idaho sales tax of 0.06. I'm starting that formula with inequality. I'm going to be multiplying it by the sale price. And that's $990 of sales tax that I either have to pay up front or I can finance it into the loan, meaning I can actually borrow that $990 as part of the loan process. The down payment for this project, we're each going to be doing a $2,500 loan initially, or sorry, $2,500 down payment initially. And then the loan amount is where all the action begins. So let me step through this a little slower here. On the loan amount, we know we're going to have to surely borrow the sale price of the vehicle, and we're going to have to borrow the sales tax for the sake of this project. But the good news is we get to subtract the down payment. And so it's, again, adding sales tax but subtracting down payment. That gives us a total of $14,990. If you'd like some decimal precision that rounds to the nearest penny on each of these, it's pretty easy to do. You can come up here to the toolbar, get more decimals that way. Those go back and forth. Another skill to be aware of in Excel is the use of the right click. When you do a right click on a trackpad, sometimes, all the time with the mouse for sure, you get the opportunity to go to Format Cells. And Format Cells on both a PC and a Macintosh give you a lot of options. You can control the look and feel of the numbers, the alignment of the cell, what kind of fonts, borders, and even what type of fill with color. And so that's a great thing to know about. It can also be done on the keyboard with a Control 1. So I use that quite often to adjust the different features of the cell. For the purpose of this project, let's go with 0.04 as our APR, 4%. Loan years, we will make it a 5-year loan. And then we're going to have to remember that even though it's a 5-year loan, we actually have a grand total of 60 months that we will be into debt for. And so let's keep that in mind as we build our payment formula. Rather than using algebra to build that payment, we're just going to take advantage of the function called PMT that you've probably used before from Excel with the left parenthesis. And that left parenthesis indicates to Excel that we're ready to start typing in inputs. So we have some user-friendly guidance here with the rate. The rate, of course, is the APR. However, since that rate is an annual rate, we're going to need to convert it into a monthly rate, so we divide by 12. We go comma after that, and then number of periods. We'll click on the 5. That allows us flexibility in the future for a 4-year or a 3-year loan, let's say. But we need to multiply it by 12 again to get it into the same units. Our units of time will be months. Then PV stands for present value. So that represents what we're actually borrowing on this loan. So I'm going to click on the loan amount. And then you'll notice in the inputs, future value and type are in brackets, and that indicates they're optional. You don't need to go there. Future value would actually be 0, but the default is already set to be 0. That's how much we owe at the end of the loan, and that's $0. And type is referring to whether it's the beginning or end of the month. By default, all of our loans will be at the end of the month. So I'm going to hit enter. Now, it turns out that that's a negative, obviously, with the parentheses and the red, but it turns out that aesthetically it's not all that pleasing to look at a whole bunch of negatives all down the spreadsheet. So what I'm going to do is double click it and simply put a negative right out in front and convert that back into a positive. Total interest, two different ways to calculate that. One is using a built-in function called CUMI payment. It's C-U-M-I-P-M-T. It stands for cumulative interest payment. And it's pretty handy, but personally I think the common sense way is the best way to do it. It really requires simple arithmetic. So I'm going to start off with an equality. I'm going to just reason it out in my head. I know that I'm going to be making this payment again and again, so I'm going to click on it. And I know I'm going to be making it for this many number of years, so I'll click on it. But I'm also going to have to multiply that by 12 to tell me how many total number of months. If I were to hit enter right here, what I get is not how much I've paid in interest, but rather how much I've paid the bank altogether. I borrowed $14,990, but I paid them literally all of that back. That reminds me then of what to do last. I need to get rid of what I actually borrowed in the first place, which was the $14,990. When I do that, I get a grand total interest of $1,573.82. So I'm going to double click that again just so you can see what I've accomplished. D9 is the payment, D8 is the number of years, 12 is the number of months per year, and then I subtract out how much I borrowed in the first place, and what's left over is known as interest after the entire 5 years. And that's the cost that the price we have to pay for borrowing from a bank or a credit union or some other organization. Now the rest of the spreadsheet involves looking at our debt month by month, which is very insightful, and it teaches a lot of great principles. So I'm going to start out here what we could argue is month 0, and I'm going to go with equals and the loan amount. And that brings the loan amount right where I need it to be. I'm going to need 60 total months here, so I've started with 1, 2, 3, 4 just by hand. I'm going to actually get Excel to replicate this for me. As you've probably done in other projects, you'll perhaps remember how to do this. If you get the black crosshair and just carefully pull and down the column vertically, you get an extension of that very sequence of numbers. It's not the only way to do it, but it's a pretty quick way. So I'm going to just keep stretching down until I get to my number of 60. There's 44. I take a breather, let go of the mouse for a moment, catch my breath, and I'm on my way again until I get to 60. All right, and that's where I stop it. So that sets up the body of the schedule for us, the debt table that we're trying to build. The next skill to have is to realize that when you take and pay a payment of $276.06, a certain portion of it goes right down the drain. It goes to the bank as interest, and then the other portion is going to help you actually do some good and bring your debt down. So you'll always want to calculate your interest first when it comes to debt. So I'm going to go equals, click on the balance. I'm going to take and multiply that by my APR. But there are two things I need to do to this APR to begin with here. I've got to be very careful. I need to remind Excel to lock in and use just that 4% each time. So from previous projects you might recall to lock it in, meaning to make an absolute cell reference, is on a Macintosh, excuse me, it's Command T. On a PC it's probably F4 or function F4, or you could just manually put the dollar signs in both the column and the row. Those dollar signs right there indicate to Excel that you must stick with that very cell and not let it float, move elsewhere. Then of course we're going to divide it by 12 since we want not annual interest but rather monthly interest. Then we're going to hit enter here and see if it makes sense. When I hit enter, I get practically $50, and that is actually correct. Unlike a house payment, the interest will not be quite as severe since we are paying our debt off in a much shorter time frame. I'll double click that again so you can see. All I simply did is I took the previous month's balance, was up in cell E14, and I multiplied it by the APR. But the two things we had to do, we had to lock in the APR with an absolute cell reference and divide by 12. Now calculating the principal is easy. We know that the principal is how much money we are paying to the bank that does us good, and easy to remember because it's your pal, your friend, P-A-L. That's the proper way to spell it. So I'm going to go equals and click on the payment, but I don't want that payment to be migrating downward after I do some fill downs, so I got to lock it in just as we did with the APR. So I'm going to go Control T on a Mac or F4 on a PC, get the dollar signs going, and then I simply subtract how much of the payment went to interest. Moral of the story is payment always equals interest plus principal, and therefore principal must always equal payment take away interest. And there we go. So the $226.10 is what does us good. We call it debt reduction. So we're going to use it now and go and calculate our very, very first month's balance, which is the months before balance. Take away the principal amount and enter. And there we have it. All right, so that takes care of the first month. I want to maybe take this and break it up into two tutorials because I want to also go back to cars.com in a moment. So I'm going to break right now and let you catch up if you need to, and then we're going to just move it down to all the 60 months and take it from there. So I'll be right back with you.